now is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee who questioned the Attorney General earlier today, Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy. Senator Kennedy, always good to have you on the show, sir.
Thanks, Chuck.
So I know you are somebody that's downplaying the Mueller letter to Barr, that because we've eventually seen it all, this is much ado about nothing. But let me ask you this. That 3-week gap where the only words we had were Barr's, not Mueller's, did that mean Barr had issued a legal document or a political document, considering that it certainly looks like a spinning, sort of something that was a bit spinning now in hindsight than what we saw at the beginning when we were told that it was more of a legal document?
Regardless of how you characterize it, Chuck, what the Attorney General did, and I've read the letter a number of times, as have you, is state the conclusions of Mr. Mueller. Now, it turns out, when this subject came up yesterday, when I heard about the Mueller letter, I was curious. Some of my Democratic friends were doing old man backflips. I mean, they said, oh, you know, Mueller's crossways with Barr. It turns out that's not the case. Mr. Mueller said, I don't disagree with your conclusions in the letter, Attorney General. He was upset because he didn't think that the Barr letter was nuanced enough. That's academic now because the report's out. And Mr. Mueller was upset at the news coverage. And frankly, I don't know what he expected the Attorney General to do about the news coverage.
There was an easy decision, Senator. The Attorney General, nothing in the regulation said he should hold a press conference. Nothing in the regulation said he should make his own decision about whether to bring a charge or not, considering that the report itself said Mr. Mueller was operating under Justice Department guidelines when it comes to indicting a sitting president, all but saying this is not up to the Justice Department. This is likely a question for Congress. He did not, but that's the point. He did not make this saying that this was a definitive conclusion.
Chuck, with all due respect, I don't think that's accurate. Now, this is what Bill Barr told us today. He said he had a meeting with Mr. Mueller. Mr. Mueller said categorically, unequivocally, that my decision about reaching no decision on obstruction of justice had absolutely nothing to do with the DOJ policy that it doesn't indict a sitting president. And he said that several times. So what you just stated there.
Well, but what Mr. Barr says, but that is not what the Mueller report itself said. The Mueller report itself said it was operating under the guidelines of the Justice Department, which state a sitting president can't be indicted.
But the Mueller report does not say that the reason Bob Mueller, could not reach a decision on obstruction of justice is because of the DOJ policy. It does reference a DOJ policy, but it doesn't say it's because of the DOJ policy.
It didn't say it either way. That's the point. But once you state at the beginning, in fairness here, Senator, if you state I'm operating under this policy, then you're already telling the reader there won't be a conclusion at the end, because that doesn't belong in the hands of the Justice Department. If it belongs anywhere, according to the Constitution, it belongs in Congress.
Well, I understand your point, Chuck. I do. But this is what prosecutors do. They do one of two things. They indict or they don't indict. Now, as I read the report, Bob Mueller, and he hasn't changed his mind to my knowledge, says I'm not going to indict on collusion, I'm not going to indict on conspiracy, and I'm not going to indict on obstruction of justice. Now, everything else is just cottage cheese. And if Mr. Mueller wants to come in front of the committee, I'm happy to hear him, but that's going to be my question. Have you changed your mind? Because if he hadn't changed his mind, this thing's over. And I understand.
Actually, if you read the declinations, you know, for instance, on the issues of conspiracy, Mr. Mueller basically says our laws are out of date. They couldn't figure out how to, the campaign finance laws. This wasn't a declination of we didn't find anything. This was a declination saying there's not a law that covers what we found. In fairness, that's a different tone than saying no collusion.
Chuck, I have great respect for you. If you were right, I would agree with you. But let me say it again. I don't think you're right. Prosecutors either do one or two things. They indict or they don't indict. Now, if Mr. Mueller has changed his mind and is going to indict, he needs to step up the plate in front of God and country and tell us. But I think my Democratic friends, here's their theory now. This is what they're down to. Not all of my Democratic friends, but many of them, their theory of the case now is that Trump covered up a crime that nobody ever committed. Now, that's what they're down to. And let me say it again. You either indict or you don't indict. Mueller says no indictment. As far as I'm concerned, this is over. The issue's dead as fried chicken. It's time to move on.
Let me ask you this. Given the fact that the Attorney General seemed to imply that the president or somebody close to him has certainly inquired about other investigations, should Bill Barr recuse himself from overseeing Mueller-related investigations, considering how much the president apparently can't keep from trying to get his Attorney General to at least give him updates?
No, and I realize I'm biased here. I'm a Bill Barr fan. I mean, I think based on some of the conduct I've seen, he's one of the few sane people over in the Department of Justice. Look, let me say this again, and I say this on behalf of Republicans and Democrats, because there were two investigations in 2016. One was of Donald Trump, but the other one was of Hillary Clinton. And I think the FBI is the premier law enforcement agency in all of human history. But I think there may have been some people, and perhaps still are over there, at FBI and Justice, who acted on their political beliefs. And some of them were for Trump, and some of them were for Clinton. They both went through it. And we need to find out who they were and get rid of them, because that's not what they're supposed to do.
Senator Graham. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I bet if you checked with Secretary Clinton today, I certainly don't speak for her, she's not real happy with the treatment she got by the FBI or the Department of Justice either.
There's no doubt. Clintons don't like the New York FBI office, and Trump doesn't like the D.C. FBI office. But let me ask you this final question. Sure. Is Senator Graham making a mistake by saying he doesn't want to hear from Bob Mueller? In all fairness, my goodness, all this money, why wouldn't you want to hear from Bob Mueller?
Well, I'm labor. I'm not management. So that's Lindsey's call. He's chairman of the committee.
If you were chairman, would you call him?
I believe in the full Monty. I say let it all hang out. If Bob Mueller wants to come up here, I'll be happy to listen to him. But my first question is going to be, because it's the only question I'm really interested in, have you changed your mind? If he says no, this thing's over.
All right, Senator Kennedy. We'll leave the full Monty visual for others. As always, sir, thank you for coming on and sharing your views. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Chuck.